I'm Dr. Arthur David, 60, male. I am a trauma surgeon at a Level I trauma center in Seattle. I spent 30 years repairing the shattered bodies of strangers, stitching lives back together when they are hanging by a thread. I live alone in a sprawling, mid-century modern home that echoes with the silence left behind by my late wife, Martha. My life is defined by precision, sterility, and the chaotic, bloody reality of the emergency room. But outside of the hospital, my life has been defined by one thing: being the financial life support system for my adult son. This story isn't about a surgery gone wrong in the operating theater. It's about the time I was the patient, gasping for air on a marble floor while my son worried about his reputation. I almost died because of his negligence and greed. But he forgot one thing: I preserve evidence for a living. And when I recovered, I didn't just get mad. I treated him like a necrotic limb. I cut him off. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. The sound of a trauma pager is something that never truly leaves your bones. It's a shrill, demanding cry that cuts through sleep, through dinner, through life. It means someone is having the worst day of their existence, and I am the mechanic expected to fix it. It was 2:00 a.m. on a Tuesday when I finished closing up a 19-year-old motorcyclist. His femur had been shattered, his spleen was a memory, and his parents were sobbing in the waiting room. I had stood over him for 6 hours, my hands steady, my mind a fortress of anatomical knowledge, piecing him back together. When I finally walked out of the OR, stripping off the blood-soaked gown and scrubbing my hands until they were raw, I felt that familiar mixture of exhaustion and adrenaline. I went to the break room, poured a cup of coffee that tasted like battery acid, and checked my phone. There were 5 missed calls, all from Lucas. My heart hammered, a different kind of tachycardia than the one induced by surgery. Was he hurt? Was he in jail? Had he been in an accident like the boy I just saved? I dialed him back immediately, my hand trembling slightly. Lucas, are you all right, Dad? Finally, his voice came through, tinny and annoyed. He wasn't in a hospital bed. I could hear the thump of bass in the background. I've been trying to reach you for hours. The deposit for the venue is due tomorrow morning, and my card got declined. I closed my eyes, letting my head rest against the cool metal of the locker. The relief washed over me, instantly replaced by a heavy, familiar leaden weight in my stomach. Of course, it wasn't an emergency. It was a transaction. Lucas, I said, my voice rasping from disuse. It's 2:00 a.m. I just spent 6 hours in surgery. Okay, well, you're awake now, he countered, devoid of empathy. Look, the venue is the Obsidian Room. It's perfect for the engagement party. Chloe says if we don't lock it in by 9:00 a.m., we lose the date. It's $5,000. $5,000 for a deposit, I asked, rubbing my temples. Lucas, we talked about a budget. You're 28 years old. You told me your start-up was gaining traction. It is, he snapped. But liquidity is tight right now. Dad, come on. It's my engagement. Mom would have wanted me to have the best. Don't start counting pennies now. That was his ace in the hole. Mom would have wanted this. Martha had passed away 5 years ago from ovarian cancer. She had doted on Lucas, shielded him from the harsh edges of the world, and perhaps in her love, she had crippled him. Since she died, Lucas had weaponized her memory every time I tried to close the wallet. I'll transfer it in the morning, I said, defeated. Can you do it now? Just to be safe, I hung up. I opened my banking app, transferred the money, and stared at the screen. The balance was healthy, a lifetime of surgeon's fees, but the outflow to Lucas David was a hemorrhage I couldn't seem to clamp. The next evening, I was summoned to dinner to discuss the details. They chose a place I disliked, a trendy, dimly lit fusion restaurant where the music was too loud for conversation and the portions were microscopic. Lucas sat there, looking every bit the tech entrepreneur he pretended to be. Designer glasses, a watch that cost more than my first car sale which I had paid for it, and an air of unearned confidence. Next to him was Chloe. Chloe was complicated. She was beautiful, undeniably. Sharp features, immaculate makeup, and eyes that constantly scanned the room to see who was watching her. She was an influencer, a job title I still struggled to comprehend. To me, she seemed to influence Lucas to spend money he didn't have. Thanks for the deposit, Arthur, Chloe said, not looking up from her phone. She was editing a photo of her cocktail. The Obsidian Room is going to look insane on the feed. You're welcome, I said, unfolding my napkin. But we need to talk about the total cost. I'm seeing invoices for florists, a DJ flown in from Miami, and a custom light show. Lucas, I agreed to help, not to finance a royal wedding. It's an investment, Dad, Lucas said, waving a hand dismissively. The people coming to this party. investors, venture capitalists. This isn't just a party, it's networking. I need to look successful to be successful. You look successful by working hard and producing a product, I said, my old school mentality clashing with his reality. Not by throwing a $60,000 party on your father's dime. 60. We're looking closer to 80. Chloe corrected, finally looking at me. But don't worry, we're going to handle the catering to save costs. My friend has a catering company, very exclusive. I paused. Food was the one variable I never played with. I don't care who caters it, I said, my voice dropping an octave, becoming the voice I used when telling a resident they were about to kill a patient. As long as they are professional. And Lucas, you know the rule. Lucas rolled his eyes.
Yes, yes.
The allergy. It is not just an allergy, Lucas, I said sternly. It is anaphylaxis. If I ingest shellfish, shrimp, crab, lobster, oyster, even cross-contamination, my airway closes in 4 minutes. I die. It's not a stomach ache. It's death. I had lived with this allergy my entire life. I carried 2 EpiPens everywhere. I was vigilant. But at a catered event, control is surrendered to the kitchen. We know Arthur. Chloe sighed. God, you're so dramatic. It's a trauma surgeon thing, isn't it? Everything is life or death. In this case, it literally is, I said. I want to see the menu. I want to speak to the caterer personally. You can't speak to them. They're busy, Lucas said quickly. Too quickly.
I'll handle it, I promise.
No shellfish. Strictly turf, no surf. Chicken and beef only. Vegan options for Chloe's friends. It'll be fine. I'm serious, Lucas. If there's even a risk of cross-contamination...
Tate, stop!
He slammed his hand on the table, rattling the silverware. I'm your son. Do you think I'm trying to kill you? I'm handling it. Just write the check for the rest of the vendors and show up. That's all you have to do. Just be a supportive dad for once instead of a risk assessor. I looked at him. I saw the little boy who used to scrape his knees and come running to me for a bandage. I saw the teenager who crashed my car and cried in my arms. I wanted to trust him. I wanted to believe that despite his entitlement, he loved me enough to keep me safe. Fine, I said. But I'm holding you to that. No shellfish! Scout's honor, he said, mocking a salute I paid for dinner. Of course, a week later, the bills started rolling in. The florist at $12,000. The lighting at $8,000. The venue balance of $15,000. Every time my phone buzzed with a notification from my bank, I felt a twinge of resentment. I was working 60-hour weeks, standing in blood and bile. To pay for hydrangeas that would die in 6 hours, I vented to Elena, my head nurse, during a slow shift. Elena was 58, tough as nails, and the only person who wasn't afraid to tell me I was an idiot. You're enabling him, Artie, she said, leaning against the nurse's station counter, chewing on a pen. He's a tick. You need to burn him off. He's my son, I defended weakly. As all I have left of Martha. Martha didn't raise him to be a leech, Elena countered. She raised him to be loved. You're confusing love with financing. There's a difference. She was right. I knew she was right. But the psychology of a parent is a treacherous landscape. I kept telling myself this is the last time. Once he's married, once his business takes off, he'll stand on his own 2 feet. The engagement party was just the final push. I was wrong. It wasn't a push, it was a cliff. 2 days before the party, Lucas called me. Dad, I need one last thing. The caterer needs the final payment in cash. They gave us a discount for cash. Cash! I frowned. That's unprofessional. Who is this caterer? It's Gourmet Bites' close friend. Look, it's the 10,000. Can you withdraw it and bring it to the party? Or drop it off to me today? 10,000 for food, for 100 people. It's high-end, Dad. Wagyu sliders, truffles, the works, remember? No shellfish. We paid extra to ensure a fully sanitized, shellfish-free kitchen preparation.
That costs money.
That reassured me slightly. Okay, if it ensures safety, fine. I'll bring the envelope to the party. Thanks, Dad. You're the best. I hung up feeling a strange mixture of pride and dread. I was the provider. I was the best as long as the ATM was dispensing cash. I prepared the money, placing the thick stack of bills in a white envelope. I labeled it Catering Finiel. I didn't know it then, but I was paying for my own execution. The Obsidian Room lived up to its name. It was dark, sleek, and pretentious. Located in a repurposed industrial warehouse downtown. The walls were lined with black velvet, and the lighting was entirely composed of purple and blue LEDs. It looked less like an engagement party and more like a nightclub for vampires. I arrived at 7:00 p.m., straight from the hospital. I had showered and changed into my tuxedo in the doctor's lounge. I was tired. My back ached from a 6-hour laminectomy earlier that day. I wanted to be in my leather armchair with a scotch and a book. Instead, I was walking into a wall of thumping electronic music. Lucas was at the entrance, holding a glass of champagne. He looked sharp in a velvet blazer, his hair perfectly coiffed. When he saw me, his eyes went immediately to my hands, looking for the envelope.
Hey, Dad.
You made it? I made it, I said, handing him the envelope. Here, the catering fee? He snatched it, tucking it quickly into his inner pocket. Awesome. Seriously, this saves us. Where is the food set up? I asked. Scanning the room. I want to check. Relaxed, Dad. It's past hors d'oeuvres and a buffet later. It's all chicken, beef, and veggies. I personally checked the manifest. Okay. I nodded. I'm going to get a water. I made my way through the crowd. I didn't recognize 90% of the people there. They were all young, holding phones up to their faces, recording everything. The air smelled of expensive perfume and ozone. I found the bar and ordered a club soda with lime. I stood in the corner observing. Chloe was in the center of the dance floor, surrounded by a ring of friends, all posing for a video. Lucas was moving from group to group, shaking hands, laughing, playing the part of the wealthy benefactor. It was a performance, and I was the producer who stayed backstage. About an hour in, the servers started circulating with silver trays. I watched them like a hawk. I stopped a young waiter. Excuse me, what is this? He looked nervous. These are beef Wellington bites, sir. And the pastry, was it prepared on surfaces used for shellfish? No, sir. The chef was very specific. No seafood in the building tonight. Strict allergy protocol. I relaxed. Thank you. I ate a beef Wellington bite. It was good. I had a chicken sede. Also good. The anxiety that usually coiled in my stomach at events began to unspool. Lucas had actually listened. He had paid the premium for my safety. I felt a surge of warmth toward him. Maybe I had been too harsh. Maybe he really did care. Then came the toasts. Lucas took the microphone, standing on a small stage. The music cut out. A spotlight hit him. Thank you all for coming, he beamed. Tonight is about love. It's about the future. Chloe, you are my rock, and I want to thank my investors for believing in my vision. He paused. I waited for my name and nod to his father. And, of course, to my parents. My mom, who is watching from heaven. I know she made this happen. Applause. And to my dad, Dr. David, who is here somewhere. Thanks for coming, Dad. That was it. Thanks for coming. Not thanks for paying for literally everything, including the shoes on my feet. Just a casual acknowledgement like I was a distant uncle. I swallowed the bitterness. It didn't matter. I wasn't doing this for praise. I was doing it because it's what you do. The buffet opened at 8:30 p.m. I was hungry. I walked over to the long tables draped in black silk. The spread was impressive. Roasted vegetables, a carving station with prime rib, exotic salads, pasta dishes. I approached a pasta dish. It looked like a creamy Alfredo. What is this? I asked the server behind the chafing dish. Truffle cream pasta with mushrooms, sir, she said. No seafood stock, no shrimp paste in the sauce. She shook her head vigorously. No, sir, vegetarian base. I took a small portion. I took a piece of bread. I sat down at a high top table near the edge of the room. I took a bite of the pasta. It was rich, creamy, delicious. I took another. And then it happened. It wasn't subtle. It never is. It started as a tingling on my tongue like I had licked a 9-volt battery. Then a sudden sharp itch in the back of my throat. No. I dropped my fork. The clatter was lost in the noise of the party. I touched my neck. It felt hot. My heart rate spiked. 120, 140, 160. The pending sense of doom. A clinical symptom of anaphylaxis crashed over me. I knew, with surgical certainty, that I had about 3 minutes before my airway became a straw, and 5 minutes before it became a wall. I stood up, knocking my chair over.
Lucas, I rasped.
My voice sounded wet and distant. I scanned the room. Lucas was laughing with a group of guys near the bar. I stumbled toward him. My vision was starting to tunnel, the edges blurring into white fuzz. I reached him and grabbed his arm. My grip was weak. Lucas, I wheezed. He turned annoyed. Dad, what? I'm in the middle of a story. Hospital. I managed to choke out. Reaction. He looked at me, confusion clouding his face. Then he saw my face. I could feel it swelling, my eyes puffing shut, my lips feeling like inflated balloons.
Whoa, Dad, are you okay? Did you drink too much?
EpiPen. I gasped, reaching into my tuxedo jacket pocket. My fingers felt like sausages. I fumbled. I couldn't feel the plastic tube. I patted my other pocket. Empty. Panic, cold and absolute, seized me. I had transferred my wallet and phone to the tuxedo, but had I forgotten the EpiPen in my daily suit? I never forgot it. Never. Then I remembered. The coat check. I had worn a heavy overcoat because of the rain. I had left the extra EpiPen in there. But the one in my pocket, where was it? Coat, I wheezed, pointing to the entrance. Kneed coat. I collapsed. My knees hit the floor hard. The impact jarred my spine, but I barely felt it. I was drowning on dry land. My throat was seizing. Every breath was a high-pitched stridor, a desperate whistle of air trying to bypass the swelling tissue. The music didn't stop. I looked up. Lucas was looking down at me, not with horror, but with irritation.
Dad, get up, he hissed, crouching down.
People are looking. You're making a scene. Can't breathe. I clawed at my collar, ripping the bodie loose. As he drunk, Chloe appeared, looking down at me with disdain. Oh my God, Arthur. Not at the engagement party. He says it's a reaction, Lucas said, looking around nervously to see if anyone was filming. Dad seriously breathed. Just calm down. Calm down. The hypoxia was setting in. My brain was screaming for oxygen. I couldn't speak anymore. I was thrashing slightly, fighting for air. Call 911, a voice said. Not Lucas. A stranger. A woman in a red dress. She knelt beside me. He's in anaphylaxis. Look at him. Call 911. We can't have an ambulance here, Chloe snapped. It'll ruin the vibe. We can just drive him. He's dying, you idiot! The woman screamed. Call 911 now! I looked at Lucas. My son, the boy whose scraped knees I had bandaged. I saw him hesitate. I saw him calculate the cost of the disruption versus the cost of my life. Fine. Call them, Lucas muttered, pulling out his phone. But tell them to come to the back entrance. The back entrance? The world went gray, then black. The last thing I heard was the bass dropping in the song, and Chloe complaining that the woman in the red dress was wrinkling my tuxedo. Waking up from a severe hypoxic event is not like waking up from a nap. It is a violent, gasping resurrection. I slammed back into consciousness with a tube down my throat. My body bucked, fighting the intrusion, the primal instinct to gag taking over. Easy, Dr. David. Easy. I knew that voice. It was Dr. Henderson, the head of the ICU at my own hospital. Hands held my shoulders down. I blinked, tears streaming from my eyes. The harsh fluorescent lights burned. I was in a trauma bay. My trauma bay. Bay 4. I knew the scuff mark on the ceiling tile above me. You're intubated. Arthur. Henderson said, his face swimming into view. You went into anaphylactic shock. We had to tube you in the field. Your SATs were in the 60s when you got here. Don't fight it. I forced myself to stop thrashing. I focused on the rhythm of the ventilator. Hiss, click, hiss, click. The machine breathing for me. I looked around. Alina was there. Her face was pale, her usual stoicism cracked. She was holding my hand, squeezing it so hard my knuckles ground together. You stubborn old bastard, she whispered. You almost checked out. I wanted to ask about Lucas. I wanted to ask what happened. But I was silenced by the plastic in my trachea. I spent 12 hours on the vent. When the swelling finally subsided enough to extubate, the sensation of the tube coming out was almost as bad as it going in. I coughed until I tasted copper, my throat raw and bleeding. Water. Carlina held a cup with a straw to my lips. I drank greedily. Where is he? I whispered. Lucas. Elena's expression hardened. She looked like she wanted to spit. He's in the waiting room. He's been complaining about the wait time. Of course. Send him in, I said. My voice was a wreck, a gravelly whisper. Arthur, you need rest. Send. Him. In. 5 minutes later, Lucas walked in. He looked disheveled, but not from worry. He looked like someone who had been inconvenienced. He was still wearing his tuxedo shirt, unbuttoned at the top. Jesus, Dad. He said, standing at the foot of the bed. He didn't come closer. You really scared everyone. The party just died after the ambulance came. Chloe is devastated. I stared at him. The monitor beside me beeped steadily, betraying no emotion, unlike the rage boiling in my chest. What happened? I asked. I don't know. Lucas threw his hands up. You ate something and flipped out. I told you to be careful. I asked. I wheezed. They said, no shellfish. Well, maybe you're sensitive to something else now. Lucas shrugged. Or maybe the kitchen messed up. Accidents happen, Dad. You don't have to look at me like I poisoned you. Woo was the catter. I told you Gourmet Bites. Chloe's friend. Get me the invoice, I said. Lucas froze, just for a microsecond. A twitch in his left eye. I knew that twitch. It was the same twitch he had when he was 7 and broke a vase and blamed the cat. The invoice. Dad, you're in the ICU. Worry about paperwork later. No, I said. Or I cut the cards. Okay, fine. I don't have it on me. I'll get it later. He tried to leave. Lucas, he stopped. Did you check the menu? Yes, I told them. Look, I have to go. Chloe is waiting in the car. She's traumatized. Seeing you like that, it was really hard for her. He walked out. He left his father in the ICU to comfort his fiancée, who was traumatized. By my near-death experience, I looked at Alina. Get me my clothes, I said. Arthur, they cut your tux off. It's in a bag. My pockets. Check my pockets. Alina went to the plastic belongings bag in the corner. She rummaged through the ruined fabric of my tuxedo. She pulled out my wallet, my phone, and a crumpled piece of cardstock. What is this? She asked. The menu card, I whispered. I had grabbed it from the table right before I ate the pasta. I had shoved it in my pocket instinctively. She smoothed it out. Truffle cream pasta. Ingredients: cream, parmesan, mushrooms, white wine, She stopped. She squinted. Arthur read it at the bottom, in tiny print. Sauce prepared with traditional oyster extract for umami depth. The oyster extract, he said. Vegetarian. I closed my eyes. He said, he checked. Elena said, her voice shaking with rage. This is a printed menu. If he checked the manifest, he would have seen this. There's more, I said. My brain was firing rapidly now, the surgeon taking over. The emotional father was dying, replaced by the cold, analytical investigator. The caterer, Gourmet Bites. Look them up. Alina pulled out her phone. She typed it in. I'm not finding a website, she said. Wait, there's a Facebook page? Gourmet Bites, affordable catering for large events. Arthur, their pinned post is from yesterday. So excited to cater the David engagement, proving you can feed 150 people for under 2 L's outered with our budget hacks. The silence in the room was deafening. The monitor beeped. Beep, beep. 2,000, I whispered. I had given him 10,000 cash. He had pocketed $8,000. And to save that money, he had hired a budget caterer who used cheap fillers like oyster extract instead of real truffle oil, he knew. Or he didn't care to check because he was too busy counting the skimmed cash. He had sold my life for $8,000. I looked at the ceiling. I felt a tear slide down my temple, hot and stinging. It wasn't sadness. It was the molten resolve of a man who realizes the tumor isn't benign, it is malignant, and it needs to be excised, Erlena, I said. My voice was stronger now, cold steel. Yeah. Artie? Call legal. Ask for Marcus, and bring me my laptop. You're supposed to be resting. No, I said. I'm done resting. I have a surgery to plan. I checked myself out of the hospital 8 hours after being intubated. Dr. Henderson wasn't happy about it. He stood in the doorway of my room, his arms crossed, his brow furrowed in that specific way doctors reserve for patients who are also colleagues. You're medically stable, Arthur, but you're chemically drained. Henderson warned. Your cortisol levels are through the roof. You need rest, not a war. I can't rest, Jim, I said, buttoning my shirt. My fingers were still stiff, my coordination lagging slightly behind my intent. There's a rot in my house. If I don't cut it out now, it's going to go systemic. Alina drove me home. The ride was silent. She knew better than to offer platitudes. She drove her Subaru with the same efficiency she ran the ER floor. When we pulled into my driveway, I saw it. Lucas's convertible was parked in my spot. Not the guest spot, my spot. Do you want me to come in? Elena asked, idling the engine. No, I said, staring at the front door. I need to do this triage alone. But keep your phone on. Always? She said. I unlocked the front door. The house smelled different. Usually my home smelled of lemon oil and old books. Now it smelled of stale pizza and expensive cologne. Lucas had been staying here while I was in the ICU. Watching the place, he had texted. I walked into the living room. It was a wreck. Empty takeout boxes, beer bottles, and throw pillows scattered on the floor. My leather recliner, my sanctuary, had a distinct wine stain on the armrest. Lucas, I called out. Silence. It was 1100 a.m. on a Tuesday. He was likely asleep. I walked past the mess and went straight to the kitchen. My eyes scanned the counters. More mess, but I wasn't looking for dirt. I was looking for data. I needed the paper trail. I found his laptop on the breakfast bar. It was closed. I opened it. Locked, of course. But Lucas was lazy. He was the kind of boy who looked for shortcuts in everything, including security. I looked at the sticky note stuck to the fridge. Wi-Fi Martha 1965. I tried the password on his laptop. Martha 1965. It unlocked. I felt a surge of nausea. He used his dead mother's name and birth year as the password for the machine he used to defraud his father. I opened his email client. I didn't have to dig deep. The thread with Chloe was at the top. But I ignored that for a moment. I searched for Gourmet Bites. There it was. An email chain dated 3 weeks ago. From Lucas David to Gourmet Bites Catering, Gourmet Bites Gmail. Come subject re-engagement party quote. I clicked it. My hand hovered over the trackpad, trembling slightly. I read the latest message from the caterer. Hi Lucas, just confirming the final adjustment. Per your request, we've switched the menu to the budget tier. We've replaced the truffle oil with the savory extract blend, say oyster soy base for the pasta, and we're using the frozen pre-mix for the satay. Total cost comes down to $1,850. We will bring our own generic signage so nobody knows it's us. Cash on arrival as agreed. And then Lucas's reply. Perfect. Do whatever you have to do to keep it under 20K. My dad is paying, but I need the surplus for the ring upgrade. Just make it look fancy. And don't worry about the allergy thing I mentioned earlier. He's just dramatic about it. If it's mixed in the sauce, he won't notice. Just don't put a whole shrimp on his plate, lol. He won't notice. Just don't put a whole shrimp on his plate, lol. I stared at the screen. The lull burned into my retinas. He didn't just neglect to check. He explicitly authorized the danger to save money. He dismissed a life-threatening anaphylactic condition as me being dramatic. He risked my life for a ring upgrade. I felt a coldness spread through my chest that had nothing to do with the lingering effects of the anesthesia. It was the death of the father I used to be. The father who made excuses. The father who saw the best in him. That father died on the floor of the obsidian room. I printed the email. I forwarded the entire thread to my secure hospital email. Then I went to the trash can under the sink. I dug through the coffee grounds and pizza crusts until I found it. A crumpled receipt from a jewelry store, dated the day before the party. Deposit for custom diamond setting. $8,000 cash payment. There it was. The money I gave him for the food. He had starved the party budget to feed his fiancée's vanity, and in doing so, he had poisoned me. I heard a noise upstairs, footsteps. I quickly smoothed out the receipt, folded it, and placed it in my pocket. I closed the laptop. Lucas appeared at the top of the stairs, wearing only boxer briefs, scratching his head. He froze when he saw me standing in the kitchen, dressed in my hospital issue sweats but standing with the posture of a surgeon about to make an incision. Dade? He blinked, looking disoriented. You're home? I thought you were in the hospital for another day. I discharged myself, I said. My voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. Oh, good. You're okay then? He started coming down the stairs. Man, this house is huge when you're alone in it. I was just keeping an eye on things.
I see that,
I said, gesturing to the beer bottles.
Yeah, sorry?
Had a few friends over to, decompress. It's been a stressful week for me too, seeing you like that. I imagine it was, I said. Lucas, we need to talk about the bills. The hospital bills. Don't you have insurance? The party bills, I corrected. I want to settle everything. I want to make sure everyone got paid. The caterer specifically. Lucas's face didn't change. He was a sociopath in the making, or maybe he was just so used to lying to me that it was automatic. Oh, I handled it. Gave them the cash envelope like you said. They were super happy. Good, I said. And the allergy protocol, they followed it? To the letter, Lucas lied, looking me dead in the eye. I watched them like a hawk. Dad. Must have been a freak accident. Maybe you developed a new allergy. Maybe, I said. I walked past him toward my study. Where are you going? He asked. To work, I said. I have a lot of paperwork to catch up on. I went into my study and locked the door. I didn't call the police. Not yet. I called Marcus. Marcus arrived at 2:00 p.m. Marcus is my nephew, my sister's son. He is 35, a partner at a corporate law firm in downtown Seattle, and the antithesis of Lucas. Where Lucas is flashy and hollow, Marcus is quiet and lethal. He specializes in contract law and asset recovery. He walked into my study, placed his briefcase on the mahogany desk, and looked at me. You look like hell, Uncle Arthur, he said. I feel like it, I admitted, pouring 2 glasses of scotch. I shouldn't be drinking after the trauma, but I needed the burn. Sit down, Marcus. I need to hire you. Your family. You don't hire me. No, I shook my head. This isn't a family favor. This is business. I want to retain you formally. I want attorney-client privilege. And I want you to be as ruthless as you are with your corporate raiders. Marcus sat down, intrigued. Or are we suing? Lucas. Marcus didn't blink. He took a sip of the scotch. Okay. Tell me. I slid the printed email across the desk. I watched him read it. I watched his jaw tighten. Marcus had grown up with Lucas. They played together as kids. But Marcus had always seen through him. Attempted manslaughter, Marcus said softly, placing the paper down. Gross negligence. Fraud! I don't want to put him in prison, Marcus. I said, though a part of me wasn't sure. I want to recover my life. I've been bleeding money for 10 years. I want an audit. A full forensic accounting of every dollar I have given him since he turned 18. That's a big number, Arthur. I know. I want to itemize it. Tuition, rent, cars. The startup seed money. The bail money from when he got the DUI in college that I swept under the rug. The engagement party. I think if it was a gift, you can't recover it. Marcus noted, switching into lawyer mode. The tuition, maybe. But the start-up money. I opened a drawer and pulled out a file. He signed a promissory note. He insisted on it. To prove he was a serious businessman, he agreed to pay me back with 5% interest once the company was solvent. Marcus took the document. And is the company solvent? I don't think the company exists, Marcus. I think the company is a bank account he uses to buy Yeezys and trips to Tulum. If he signed this, and the company is a sham, that's fraud in the inducement. We can pierce the corporate veil. We can go after his personal assets. He doesn't have personal assets, I said. He has my assets. He has the trust fund, Marcus said. I paused. Martha had left a trust for Lucas. It was set to unlock fully when he turned 30. Currently, he received a stipend, but the bulk of it, nearly $500,000, was sitting there accruing interest. Can we touch the trust? I asked. If we get a judgment against him for fraud and debt, yes. We can garnish the disbursements. We can freeze it.
Do it.
For the next 4 hours, we worked. It was like the surgery. We opened up the patient, my finances, and looked at the damage. It was worse than I thought. I pulled up my credit card statements. I had given Lucas a supplementary card for emergencies. Emergency I 400 at a steakhouse. Emergency Thurs 200 at an Apple store. Emergency 3000 at a VP club in Vegas. He's been living like a king, Marcus muttered, typing into his spreadsheet. While I pick up extra shifts, I said, my voice flat. Then we looked at the start-up, TechFlow Solutions. I had given him the $150,000 in seed money 2 years ago. Marcus ran a business license search. TechFlow Solutions dissolved 6 months ago, Arthur. He didn't file his annual report. The state shut it down. He asked me for another 20,000 injection last month, I said. For server costs. That's theft by deception. By 1600 p.m., we had the number, the itemized invoice. Total principal owed, loans and fraulo, $245,000. Damages, medical and emotional distress, $1,000 and sorrows and conservative estimating. Engagement party fraud and 22,000. What's the plan? Marcus asked, printing the final demand letter. It was thick. Heavy? He wants to have a family meeting tomorrow night, I said. He texted me an hour ago. He wants to discuss the wedding budget. He thinks I'm going to pay for the actual wedding. The ball's on this kid. Marcus shook his head. I'm going to host it, I said. Here? I'll order dinner. You come at 8:00 p.m. Bring the process server. You're going to serve him at dinner. He likes to be served, I said, staring at the amber liquid in my glass. Let's give him 5-star service. The next evening, the house was clean. I had hired a service to come in and scrub away the filth Lucas had left. I wanted the stage to be sterile. Lucas and Chloe arrived at 7:00 p.m. They brought a bottle of wine, a cheap blend that looked expensive if you didn't know wine.
Dad, you look so much better.
Chloe chirped, kissing my cheek. She smelled of vanilla and ambition. I'm recovering, I said, leading them to the dining room. I had set the table with Martha's good china. I wanted this to feel formal. I wanted them to think they had won. So, Lucas said, pouring the wine. We've been thinking, since the engagement party was interrupted. Maybe we can roll the budget over to the wedding. We found a venue in Napa. It's stunning.
Napa. I nodded. Expensive.
Quality costs money, Dad.
You know that? Lucas smiled. A shark's smile. We were thinking, Chloe added, placing a hand on Lucas's arm. Since you save so much on the medical bills, because of your professional courtesy discount or whatever, maybe we could increase the wedding budget to $100K. It would really help us launch our brand. I stared at them. They were discussing my near-death experience as a cost-saving measure. I have the catering for tonight, I said, standing up. I ordered from a place I trust. I went into the kitchen. On the counter sat a silver serving platter with a domed lid. It was the one Martha used for Thanksgiving turkeys. But there was no turkey inside. I walked back into the dining room, carrying the platter with 2 hands. I set it down in the center of the table. I have a gift for you both, I said. A wedding present early. Lucas's eyes lit up. Dad, you didn't have to. Is it the check? Open it. Lucas reached out and lifted the silver lid. Underneath, there was no food. There were 2 thick stacks of documents stapled and bound in blue legal backers. And sitting on top of them, a single epinephrine auto-injector. What is this? Chloe asked, her nose wrinkling. Lucas picked up the top document. Super Artau F. Masayan Tau Asire Sival Divisio N. Plaintiff Arthur David. Defendant Lucas David, you're suing me. Lucas laughed, a nervous, high-pitched sound. Dade, good joke. What is this? Read the first page, Lucas, I said, sitting back in my chair. He read. His face went pale. Then read. Fraud. Intentional infliction of emotional distress? Theft. He slammed the papers down. Are you insane? I'm your son. You ceased to be my son when you decided 1-800 was worth risking my life. I said quietly. I know about the email, Lucas. Just don't put a whole shrimp on his plate, lol. Chloe gasped. She looked at Lucas. You sent that. Shut up, Chloe. Lucas snapped. He looked at me, his eyes wild. You hacked my email.
That's illegal. Actually, it's discovery.
A voice said from the doorway. Marcus walked in. He was wearing his charcoal suit. Beside him was a large man with a thick neck, the process server, Lucas David. The large man asked, Get out of my house! Lucas screamed. You have been served, the man said, dropping a second copy of the papers on Lucas's lap. And you, Chloe Miller. You're named as a co-defendant for conspiracy to commit fraud regarding the vendor kickbacks. Me! Chloe shrieked. I didn't do anything. You accepted the 8,000 ring knowing it was bought with stolen funds intended for medical safety. Marcus said calmly. That makes you an accessory. We'll be deposing you next week. Lucas stood up, his chair clattering back. Dad, stop this, right now. You're embarrassing yourself. You're going to sue your own kid. I am suing a criminal who defrauded me, I said, and I am evicting a tenant. I pulled a separate piece of paper from my pocket. Notice to quit, I read. You have 3 days to remove your belongings from this property. The locks will be changed on Friday at noon.
You can't do that. I have tenant rights.
You don't pay rent, Marcus interjected. You're a guest, and your invitation has been revoked due to violent conduct, specifically poisoning the homeowner. Lucas looked at me. For the first time, the arrogance was gone. In its place was fear. Not the fear of losing me, but the fear of the world without me. The fear of a parasite losing its host. Dad, he pleaded, his voice cracking. Please? I'm sorry. I messed up. I wanted everything to be perfect. I'll pay you back. I swear. You will pay me back, I said, picking up the EpiPen from the platter and sliding it into my pocket. Marcus has already filed for an emergency freeze on your trust fund. You won't see a dime of Martha's money until my debt is satisfied.
That's my money.
It was Martha's money, I corrected, and she would have despised what you became. I pointed to the door.
Get out.
Get out. Lucas looked at Chloe. She was already backing away, distancing herself from him physically and metaphorically. She saw the ship sinking, and she was looking for a lifeboat. Lucas grabbed the papers and stormed out.
You'll hear from my lawyer. I doubt it.
Marcus called after him. You can't afford one. The front door slammed. The silence that followed was heavy, but for the first time in years, the house felt clean. The weeks following the dinner service were not filled with the screaming matches I expected. Instead, they were filled with the quiet, suffocating pressure of litigation. A lawsuit is not a duel, it is a siege, and Marcus was an expert at starving the enemy out. Lucas tried to fight back initially. He hired a lawyer, a strip mall generalist named Greg, who usually handled DUIs and slip and falls. Greg sent a blustering letter claiming that my suit was frivolous, and that the money I gave Lucas was a gift under the law and therefore non-recoverable. Marcus replied with a binder. It contained the promissory note for the startup capital, the emails admitting to the misuse of funds, and the itemized receipts proving the business expenses were actually luxury vacations. But the real turning point wasn't the paperwork. It was Chloe. 2 weeks after the papers were served, Marcus called me into his office. He was smiling, a rare shark-like grin. You're not going to believe this, he said, turning his monitor toward me. It was an Instagram video. Chloe was sitting on a beige sofa, wearing a modest sweater, no makeup, looking directly into the camera with tear-filled eyes. The caption read, "My truth breaking free from toxic deception." I watched as she spoke. I want to address the rumors. She sniffled. I recently ended my engagement to Lucas. I found out disturbing things. I was lied to. I was told he was a successful entrepreneur. I didn't know the money he was spending was stolen from his own father, a father who almost died. I am a victim in this too. I'm cooperating fully with Dr. David's legal team to make things right. I stared at the screen, stunned. She flipped like a pancake. Marcus chuckled. Her lawyer called me this morning. She's offering to testify that Lucas explicitly told her the business money was a slush fund. In exchange, we drop her from the fraud suit so her brand doesn't take a hit. She's lying, I said, disgusted. She knew. She was spending the money right along with him. Oh, absolutely, Marcus nodded. But do you want to destroy her, or do you want to nail Lucas to the wall? Because her testimony destroys his gift defense. She proves intent. Cut her loose, I said, feeling tired. She's a symptom. Lucas is the disease. With Chloe gone and turning state's witness, Lucas's defense crumbled. The hemorrhage began in earnest on a rainy Tuesday. Marcus had secured a preliminary injunction to freeze Lucas's assets pending the trial. We hit him where it hurt. First, the car. Lucas drove a leased Porsche Macan. I had co-signed the lease 3 years ago, but the payments were supposed to come from his trust stipend. Since the trust was frozen, the payments stopped. I called the leasing company and exercised my right as a co-signer to surrender the vehicle. I didn't tell Lucas. He found out when he walked out of his gym. An Equinox membership I had also stopped paying for, to find a tow truck lifting his status symbol onto a flatbed. He called me, screaming.
You stole my car. You can't do this.
I didn't steal it, I said calmly, sipping my coffee in the break room. I stopped subsidizing it. It's a breach of contract, Lucas. Welcome to the real world. The next came the apartment. He had moved into a high-end loft after I kicked him out, putting down a deposit with a credit card I hadn't canceled yet. I canceled the card. The charge bounced. The landlord, a no-nonsense developer, Gave him a 3-day notice to pay or quit. Lucas had no cash. His accounts were frozen. His trust was locked. His fiancée had left him and was trashing him online to save her follower count. He showed up at the hospital 3 days later. I was in my office reviewing charts. My secretary, who had been briefed, tried to stop him, but he pushed past her. He looked terrible. He hadn't shaved. His clothes were rumpled, expensive clothes, but worn with the desperation of a man living out of a suitcase. "Dad," he said. He didn't yell. He sounded broken. "I have nowhere to go." I looked up from my charts. I felt a twinge in my chest. That old instinct, the biological imperative to protect my child, flared up. It would have been so easy to write a check, to fix it, to make the pain go away. But then I remembered the tube in my throat. I remembered the menu card. "Just don't put a whole shrimp on his plate, lol." "You have a degree, Lucas," I said. "You have a body that works. You are capable of labor."
I can't get a job like this.
He gestured to himself. "My accounts are frozen. I can't even buy food. Dad, I'm hungry." "I was hungry at the party," I said softly. "And you fed me poison to save $8,000. He flinched. "Here." I reached into my desk. His eyes lit up. He thought I was reaching for the checkbook. I pulled out a pamphlet I kept for indigent patients. "This is a list of local shelters and food pantries," I said, sliding it across the desk. "They can help you with immediate housing and nutrition. And there's a staffing agency listed on the back that hires for manual labor, daily pay. No background check required." He stared at the pamphlet like it was a venomous snake. "You're joking," he whispered. "I'm your son. You're a millionaire surgeon. You're going to let me sleep in a shelter." "I'm letting you experience the consequences of your actions," I said. "You wanted to be a businessman, Lucas. You made a bad deal. This is bankruptcy. I hate you," he hissed. Tears welled in his eyes, tears of self-pity, not remorse. "Mom would never have done this." "You're right," I said, my voice hardening. "Mom wouldn't have done this, and that's why you turned out this way. I am correcting her mistake, and mine." I pressed the intercom button. "Security to Dr. David's office, please." Lucas looked at me one last time, a look of pure, unadulterated hatred. Then he turned and walked out before security could arrive. I watched him go. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel victorious. I felt like I had just performed an amputation on a gangrenous limb. It was a tragedy, but it was necessary for survival. The legal battle ended 6 months later, not with a dramatic courtroom showdown, but with a quiet signature in a conference room. Lucas had run out of money for his lawyer. He had no choice but to settle. The terms were absolute. Judgment: Lucas admitted to the debt of $245,000. Repayment: the trust fund was liquidated. The penalties for early withdrawal were steep, but what remained, about $300,000, was transferred directly to me to satisfy the debt and legal fees. Restraining order. A permanent order was put in place. He was not to contact me, come to my home, or visit the hospital. After the settlement was signed, Marcus and I walked out of the building into the gray Seattle drizzle. "It's done," Marcus said, handing me the file. "You're whole, financially speaking." "Financially," I repeated. "He asked me to pass a message," Marcus said, hesitating. He asked if he could have the photo album from the living room, the one with Martha. I thought about it. That album contained the memories of the family we used to be. The vacations, the birthdays, the Christmas mornings before the greed set in. "No," I said. "Tell him he can earn it. If he holds down a job for 1 year, a real job, and sends me proof, I'll mail it to him." "Tough," Marcus noted. "Necessary. 1 year later I sold the house. The mid-century modern home was too big, too full of ghosts. I sold it for a significant profit and bought a condo in the city, closer to the hospital. It has a view of the Sound. It's clean, modern, and quiet. I retired from trauma surgery. My hands are still steady, but my heart wasn't in the fight anymore. I took a position teaching anatomy at the medical school. I teach young doctors how to fix broken bodies. It's less stress, more fulfillment. I didn't hear from Lucas for a long time. I heard rumors through the grapevine. Elena has a cousin who saw him working at a car rental agency near the airport. Apparently he was washing cars. I didn't check up on him. I didn't drive by. I let him be. Then, last week, a letter arrived at my office at the university. No return address. I opened it. Inside was a pay stub. Hertz Rene car. Employee Lucas David. Year to date earnings. 32,000. There was no note. No apology. Just the proof. I stared at the paper. It wasn't a fortune. It was barely a living wage in Seattle. But it was honest money. For the first time in his life. My son had earned $32,000 that didn't come from me. I felt a lump in my throat. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. The scar on my relationship with him was deep, and keloid tissue is tough. But it was hope. I went to my bookshelf. I pulled down the photo album. I wrapped it carefully in brown paper. I addressed it to the Hertz location near the airport. Atten, Lucas David. I didn't include a check. I didn't include a letter. I just sent the memories. That evening I went to dinner with Alina. We went to a seafood restaurant on the pier. You sure about this? Alina asked, eyeing the menu. I'm sure, I said. I ordered the clam chowder.
Arthur, she gasped.
I smiled. I'm kidding, I'll have the steak, medium rare. We laughed. It was a light, easy sound. The sound of a man who is no longer carrying the weight of a grown man on his back. I almost lost my life at a party because I was seen as a bank account, not a father. It took a near-death experience to wake me up, but I survived. I cut out the rot. And in doing so, I might have actually saved my son. He's not rich. He's not an entrepreneur. He's washing cars in the rain. But for the first time in his life, he's a man. And I am finally truly free. This is Dr. Arthur David signing off.